What does the Ryan Brasier trade mean for the rest of the Cubs bullpen and maybe a future offseason acquisition?
You are Locked On Cubs, your daily Chicago Cubs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Cubs, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Sam Olbert. I'm a lifelong fan, taking my passion into a discussion with you. I did 2 points that time on all things Cubs. Thanks for being part of the show and making Locked On Cubs your first listen today. And the best way you can help us grow the show is to listen every day, like the video, and give us a comment below. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off your first purchase. The Cubs have traded for another relief pitcher. Yes, this time it is Ryan Brasier of the Dodgers. Matt, as usual, did a great job bringing his name up a couple of days ago on our show. He was DFA'd by the Dodgers. The Cubs traded for him, player to be named later, and they got some cash back for him, so they won't be paying his full $4.5 million salary. We don't know the exact number what the Cubs will be paying him. If I had to guess, I think it'll probably be between $2 and $3 million. That would be my guess. That's kind of what I've read. Maybe a little. I've read maybe a little bit less than that, but I think between 2 and 3 seems like the right number. So when discussing Brasier, he had a pretty solid season in 2023. He was really good. I have his numbers right here. He only pitched 38 innings, but had a really nice year, 0.70 ERA in those 38 innings. Last year, he pitched 28 innings, had a 3.54 ERA, a very impressive whip of 0.96. He throws hard, mid-90s, has a good fastball. He does a really nice job of limiting the walks. And, I think that's a really key stat for the Cubs, especially because, their best reliever is Porter Hodge, and we know that he has some control issues at times. Maybe that will, subside as he continues to grow and get older. But I think control is such an underrated attribute for a reliever, because when you're up, most of the time when you come in with a lead, sometimes it won't be a 1-run game. It might be a 2-run game. And the only way you can really get yourself into trouble is by giving up a bunch of hits or walking guys. And so I like that he doesn't walk guys. I was pretty against, isn't the right word, because this isn't a pitcher that, in my opinion, is significant enough to really go, oh my gosh, I want this so bad, or oh, I don't. I just was kind of like, hey, if you're going to go get another reliever, let's go get David Robertson or somebody higher echelon. But as we've learned since then, the Cubs are more and more in the Bregman sweepstakes, as we'll get to in the second segment. So maybe this acquisition and having the Dodgers eat some salary, let's just hypothetically just say the Cubs are paying him $2.5 million, something in that range. That allows you to add another, I think, fairly reliable arm, maybe some leverage innings, maybe some late innings, and still have plenty of money to go out there and offer Alex Bregman, which we'll talk about that they did. So I think it's kind of when I was thinking about Brasier, I was thinking about him in a vacuum. But when you start to consider, okay, what about a Bregman, or what about another potential move? This move starts to make more sense on the surface with that. And I think Jed deserves a pat on the back, because, it sounds like he's probably going to pay like between maybe $10 and $11 million total for Ryan Pressly and Ryan Brasier combined. And you look at what some of these relievers are getting, just one reliever like an AJ Minter's getting 11 plus. I think Robertson will get 11, 12 plus. Scott got 16, whatever it was, 16 plus the Cubs offered him. I think he's actually making 18 with the Dodgers. So, my point is that this was a pretty shrewd move by Jed, trading for Pressly, trading for Brasier instead of going out on the free agent market to land that reliever has given the Cubs some flexibility that we'll talk about. But what's really interesting now is what this means for the rest of the bullpen, because typically you're going to go into a season, with 8 relievers, right? And so I want to pull this up for you right now. Here are the guys that I have as locks right now in the bullpen. Okay. Brasier, I believe, he would be a lock. Hodge, that's 2. Presley, Thielbar, Miller, Morgan, and Nate Pearson. Those are the 7 guys I have as locks to be on the opening day roster. Now, you might say 1 or 2 of these guys may not be a lock, but I can't imagine they went out and got Thielbar as a lefty. He should be out there. Pearson, I just thought he showed enough last year where, he'll be out there. Now, injuries can happen, of course, and they traded for Morgan. I expect him to be there. So who's going to be that 8th guy, and what does it mean for the rest of the staff? Because let's do this exercise. Let's talk about Ben Brown. But by all accounts, Ben Brown is healthy. He's ready to go. Ben Brown absolutely has to be, in my opinion, in the Cubs opening day bullpen or starting rotation. He has to be on their opening day roster. So if Ben Brown, let's say, is starting, so you got Steele, Imanaga, Tyone, Boyd, and Brown, then Colin Ray is not getting $5 million to not be on the opening day roster. So then he would move to the bullpen and that would be it. So guys like Merriweather wouldn't make it. Little wouldn't make it. Keegan Thompson wouldn't make it. I mean, these are all pretty, among Cubs land, pretty popular names. Now, if Ben Brown starts in the bullpen, then he's your 8th guy. And then Colin Ray would start as your 5th starter. Or, what does this mean for Javier Assad? What does this mean for Jordan Wicks? I mean, I do think it is interesting. There's a bit of a roster crunch here. Could Javier Assad and Jordan Wicks start the season in AAA and just be depth pieces when the Cubs need it? I don't know. The other side of this is trades. Does Julian Merriweather have any value on the open market at all? Could the Cubs trade him and clear a spot out? Because, I mean, we saw with Merriweather, his true talent is definitely good enough to make this club. But, the Cubs have really taken this bullpen thing seriously. Credit to him for doing that. And I can't see Ben Brown not making the team unless he's 100% healthy. And as I just went through, I mean, who's the odd man out? Would it be then, Nate Pearson? I think he's a lock. He was throwing 100+ last year. They really like his stuff. I'm sure Zombro and the pitching department are going to tweak it. I mean, he could be a real high upside guy. I mean, this is a pretty strong bullpen group in terms of depth. And if Hodge takes a step forward and can become that guy for your bullpen, I think it's a really good group. But, it is interesting what it says about Wicks and Assad and Brown. I like Jordan Wicks. I think he's a major league starting pitcher. Does he need a little bit more seasoning in AAA? Yeah, maybe, especially from a health perspective. And I also think that's why this spring will be so interesting, because there's real serious position battles going on here. I mean, I do think it matters for a guy like, for example, a Caleb Thielbar. If he comes out, and I said I have him as a lock right now, but if he were to come out and have a spring training where he's given up, home runs every other inning, and he's not commanding things, there isn't a long leash. There isn't a long leash for these guys, because there's a lot of guys chomping at the bit, waiting their turn. I didn't even mention Ethan Roberts. The Cubs like him. He's a candidate to, not make this opening day roster per se, but be a guy that is in this bullpen mix. So it'll be really interesting to see what the Cubs do going forward with this group, if they make any trades, if they DFA anybody with another addition. But for me personally, what I would like to see is Ben Brown be the 5th starter. This is just my preference. I'd like to see him be the 5th starter and let Colin Ray be the 8th guy in the pen as a depth piece. And when Brown pitches, you have Ray kind of ready to go, maybe after 4 innings, 5 innings. That's what I prefer. But I also could understand, they might want to ease Brown back into it. See if he's completely healthy before they give him a full allotment of innings. But I just think upside-wise, Ben Brown's I think Ben Brown has a chance to be a really, really good pitcher. So I think Ben Brown has a chance to be like one of the best pitchers on this team. So we'll see what they do. But interesting move with Jed. And to be honest with you guys, Brasier, solid arm, hopefully reliable late, doesn't walk guys. But really, what I took away from this when it got announced on Tuesday night was what it meant for the Alex Bregman sweepstakes. And we're going to talk about that coming up next. This episode is brought to you by Game Time. Whether it's a Cubs game, a comedy show, or a concert, I love going to live events. And now Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. The experience of searching for and then buying tickets on Game Time is simple. Plus, the Game Time ticketing app gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. Download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKDOWNMLB for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKDOWNMLB for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. We're back here on Locked On Cubs, and some pretty big news Tuesday night into Wednesday that came out from Northside Baseball's Matthew Trueblood. He wrote an article reporting that the Cubs do have a very unique offer on the table for Alex Bregman in the 4 years, $105 million range, with some opt-outs, some team options, some player options, all those kind of things that are unique. And there was a lot of steam on Wednesday. I'm recording this Wednesday evening at about 10:15 Central Time. The reason why I waited so late, to be honest with you guys, was because there was some steam in the late afternoon on Wednesday. John Heyman called the Cubs the favorites to land Alex Bregman, and I was just starting to hear some chatter. So much so that I asked a couple of my sources to get involved in this, and then I was talked a little bit off the ledge and said, "Hey, the Cubs are definitely involved, but nothing's imminent right now." So that made me feel a little bit more comfortable preparing for a show and get ready to go. But the connection here with Brasier and Bregman's an easy one to make. If the Cubs didn't feel like they had a legitimate shot to land Alex Bregman, I don't think they trade for Ryan Brasier. I think they cut their losses and go get, maybe a guy like David Robertson, or maybe they still trade for Ryan Brasier, but they would have their eyes on somebody else. The great news here, guys, is that the Cubs clearly have an eye towards making another big move before March 18th when the Cubs play the Dodgers in Japan. If it's not Bregman, who would it be? I don't know. They would have to probably get creative, maybe in a trade or something like that. But it's refreshing to know that the money's there. I do think there's probably a connection between trading Nico Horner and signing Alex Bregman, because we know the Cubs don't want to go over that luxury tax or get even probably really close to it before at least the trade deadline. And if they were to add Bregman, it would take him right there if he's making $30 million a year. So maybe they trade Nico for a cheaper starting pitcher and save maybe $5 million, $6 million in that transaction, and that's it, which we could talk about at a different time if it really happens. But I still think it's a positive thing that the Cubs are in these talks. And I do believe the Cubs, I'll even go back to trading for Presley plus trading for Brasier instead of just going out and throwing money at the free agents, I think signals that the Cubs really do believe that they have a chance at Alex Bregman. I'm sure you guys are probably getting tired of hearing about it, but it is a big story, because if you land a guy like Alex Bregman, to me, it's the definition of raising your floor. Does Matt Shaw have as high of a ceiling as Alex Bregman? You can make that argument. We don't know anything about Matt Shaw yet. I think Matt Shaw has a really high floor as a prospect, but as we've talked about, for 2025, if you told me by mid-May he's playing AAA ball, I'm not shocked. If you told me by mid-June he's the clear-cut favorite to be the Rookie of the Year, I'm not shocked. There's so many different variances, so many different outcomes when you have a 23-year-old making his big league debut. Maybe he gets moved over to second base. Who knows? But if you go get Bregman, to an extent, you know what you're getting. There's a lot of debate about, his slug at Wrigley and would it be a good park for him. And I don't think it's worth getting into that until the Cubs actually get him. But I do view this rhetoric, this chatter about Alex Bregman and the Cubs actually having an offer on the table, I do view that positively. I do, because it tells me, one, the Cubs are really serious about making a push to just become clear-cut favorites in the division. As I'm recording this on FanDuel, their over-under is shot up to 87.5. So 2 wins in the last 3 or 4 days. Maybe that's part of the Pacoda projections coming out. Maybe it's part of the Bregman chatter. I don't know. But what I do know is that's a lot of wins. 87.5 over-under. That's a really good number. And guys like John Heyman are calling the Cubs favorites. Matt Spiegel on 670 on Wednesday said he believes the Cubs have a really good chance to land Bregman. So it is feeling like there's momentum there. But again, I'm still not completely sold on it. But the Brasier trade felt like a step forward for me on that. It was a signal for me of like, okay, the Cubs are really serious about this. And, that it's possible. I'm refreshing Twitter as I talk, because I'm so paranoid that something might break, because just recently Pete Alonso re-signed with the Mets. So we'll see what happens. I in a vacuum, I'm indifferent about the Brasier trade. I think Matt might like it better than me. We'll get his thoughts on it when he's back. I'm on it. I think it's just another arm. It's fine. I don't think he's a pitcher that moves the needle for me enough to really have a strong opinion one way or another. But because of the implications with Bregman, and because what it could mean for the Cubs and the flexibility it opens up to do other moves, I'm excited about it, and I'm really interested to see how the next 48 hours or so play out regarding Bregman's free agency, and does it go long? Does it get wrapped up this weekend? We'll have to see. Coming up next, there is some broadcasting news that broke on Wednesday about the Chicago Cubs, and we will talk about it. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to make it even more exciting than with Prize Picks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With over 10 million members and billions in winnings awarded, Prize Picks makes it fun and simple to get in on the action. Here's how it works. You pick more or less on at least 2 players' projections, and if you're right, you could win up to 1,000 times your cash. Prize Picks even has a free pick for the big game where Patrick Mahomes only needs to throw 1 yard to win. Pair that with 1 or more correct pick, and you're cashing out. This week, I'm looking at the board and selecting more for Travis Kelce on receiving yards and more for a quarterback's passing yardage. What I love most, fast, safe withdrawals. When I win, my cash is in my account in as little as 15 minutes. Check out the promos tab to tail any of the super sweet Millie winners big game lineups. If you tail a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you can win a split of $1 million in promo funds. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 instantly after you place your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. We are back here on Locked On Cubs, and it got announced today that Alex Cohen, the triple A voice for the Chicago Cubs, is going to be Boog Sciambi's permanent backup this year, which I think is a pretty big story. The first scoop I heard was from Jeff Agrest. He works for the Sun-Times. He does a bunch of really good stuff with like broadcasting. He was the first one that I saw report this. And what this means is, you might say, well, why is this a story? He's Boog's backup. Well, remember, Boog misses quite a few games. He does Sunday Night Baseball every Sunday, so that means you'll be hearing Alex Cohen at least once a week on Sundays. And then there's different pockets where Boog misses, and you'll hear Alex Cohen. My initial impression of Alex Cohen, I've interacted with him on Twitter a little bit in the past. First of all, he seems like a wonderful guy. Just a wonderful guy. I don't know him personally, but he just seems like a terrific guy. Just listening to him talk, do interviews. And he also seems like he loves the Cubs, and he definitely will have a really good pulse on the PCAs and the Shaws of the world, because the Browns of the world, the Kate Hortons of the world, when they come up, because he called their games. My only nitpick with Alex Cohen would be, and again, it's such a stingy one because I've only heard him do a few games, and this is just me. I am such a diehard fan when I'm watching. Like I have such a hard time when the Cubs are losing that, like, if they're down like 11-3 or 11-2, I can't celebrate, like, especially if they're struggling. Like, PCA, it's a home run. Like Alex Cohen, he's a very like positive guy, and that's great. I mean, but you guys know me. I'm a little bit cynical and on the pessimistic side. So like my only thing with Cohen would be is, if he's going to be a regular, and he's announcing a game in September, and the Cubs have a really bad loss, how is he going to handle those situations? Because those are tough. Because I think obviously you're announcing for the Cubs, but the fans want to hear some genuine, like, hey, that was really unacceptable, or hear the frustration in the voice. I think that'll be an interesting challenge. But overall, I think this is pretty good news for the Cubs, because I really do believe he loves the Cubs and knows a lot about some of these young guys. And I think pairing him with a Sud and pairing him with a JD will be good, and we'll see what happens. The only negative for me is on Sundays, I used to get a real kick out of Pat Hughes doing those Sunday games on Marquee, which I would assume won't be a thing anymore, and Hughes will stay on the radio, but I could always listen to the radio anytime I want. So we'll see. I'm interested to see, where Marquee goes, like with the broadcasting, because like you guys know me really well at this point. My issue with Marquee is everything is just so like, not positive, but it's just not critical enough for me. Like I just wish they'd be a little bit more critical at times. Like Cliff Floyd's great. He's really critical when necessary. No one's asking you to be critical if the team's playing well, but like in May and June last year, like it's just like, I'm the type of guy if I was calling the games, I would snap a little bit, but that's not Marquee's personality, and I have to get used to that. But I think Alex Cohen will be a really good fit, and that was pretty big news. I had heard a little bit about it at CubsCon, and it came official on Wednesday. So more big news, a big news Wednesday. Nothing official yet outside of course, the Ryan Brasier trade. He will help the bullpen, but what does it mean for Alex Bregman? Let's hope for all of our sakes that this Bregman thing gets resolved in the next couple of days. So next week we could start fresh, either with Alex Bregman on the team or talking about what's next for the Chicago Cubs. Thank you so much for checking out this edition of Locked On Cubs. You give us 20 to 30 minutes. We'll give you all things Cubs with a laugh or two along the way. Be sure to hit subscribe on YouTube, smash the like button for the algorithm, and leave a 5-star review on Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. I'm Sam Olber, and this is Locked On Cubs.